There's an old saying, your cup spilleth over. And in modern times, in armchair philosophy, spiritual self-help circles, it's often a useful metaphor to make sure that your cup is always full. That when your cup spilleth over, it's that you're so abundant and you have so much excess and you're feeling so good that you have more than enough to share with everybody else. It's a really useful analogy to make sure you're self-centered in the healthiest way. Now, it's very important to remember that keeping your cup full for yourself means that you don't pour it into anybody else's cup. You don't let anyone take a sip of your own cup. What's in your cup is just for you. And you work really hard at keeping your cup full. You know, you're not in need. You're not half full that you're wanting other people to fill up your cup. You work really hard in being and working towards some sort of self-actualization where you look in the mirror and you look internally to fill this cup up. You're not looking externally. You're not externally referenced to the world to fill your cup up. You're internally referenced where you fill your own cup up as a metaphor. And with that in mind, I'd like us to consider what happens when a man who is ostensibly sort of full, he's got himself together, his life's together, his cup's full, and he's got regular intervals of his cup overflowing, especially on his good days. Often people like being around these kind of people. They're confident, they're self-assured, they're happy, they're fun to be around. And it's quite often why women like being with these people too. Now, let's consider what happens when a man takes his eye off his own cup. Being full, taking care of himself, responsibly mind you. And let's also forget that the cup doesn't represent you. The cup is your relationship. In the initial example, your cup being full for you is your relationship with everything inside that makes you full and whole. So your values, your self-esteem, your goals, your dreams, your ethics, your morals, what you're driven by, what you like to do, all these pieces that just make you feel more and more full and content with life. That's the stuff that goes into your cup. The cup is your relationship, most importantly with yourself. Now, let's consider what happens when the typical man gets into a relationship. He forgets about his own cup and has a joint cup, that he has a relationship with a female. Now, ostensibly, he thinks that, oh, well, this is our cup. I don't need much. I'll just put in a little bit for me. And I'm happy to initially put in much more for her because I don't need much. A man doesn't. He's self-sufficient. And look at all the room left in this massive cup. He's optimistic. He thinks, I don't need much. I'm happy to put in extra. So he starts putting in more and more for her. Right from the very first date, it's kind of asking her out, deferring to her, paying for dinner, driving. Then there's the more committed stages, and especially after the honeymoon period where she sort of wants more and more. Where is the relationship going? Moving in together, marriage, kids, bigger house, cars, holidays, etc., etc., etc. It's just more. Over time, the man realizes that he still hasn't really put in much from those initial first drops, yet the initial trickling in of her needs that he was happy to give access to, the levels are continually rising in this so-called joint relationship cup that he soon realizes isn't joint at all. It's really her cup that he's helping her fill up for her. And he better not open his mouth and keep filling it up with pink liquid that has nothing to do with what he wants. But he cares for her. He's invested so much in putting into this cup, this joint cup, that he just keeps doing it because he's fearful of losing it all. And what happens by now, as the faucet, the tap has been turned on full and the water levels are continually rising? Well, a man might think, well, when I've given enough, when it gets to the top and when there's excess, then I'll get something back. You know, a real man provides everything she wants, and then when there's excess and overflow, that's when I get something back. First of all, it's pretty pathetic that you have to sort of fill this cup up with everything she wants and virtually nothing for you before you'll even get any excess. But what tends to happen, gentlemen, I want you to consider this, is when in this joint cup, typically what we see in relationships where it's all about the female. It's not a joint cup at all. It's her cup that she calls a joint cup that is filled up with everything she wants. What happens when it fills up isn't that you get any excess that comes over the top. When it fills up and it starts to overflow, she leaves. She gets bored. She's fallen out of love. The relationship isn't going anywhere. She feels like she's wasted time. That's what happens in the typical romantic relationship joint cup. When the continual water levels have reached the top and start spilling over, she leaves. And here's the more depressing part. For it to last, you have to keep building a bigger and bigger cup to accommodate the amount of liquid that's continually flowing into this thing through demands and nagging, and the foot on the accelerator of where this relationship is going. Faster and faster, more and more. A man naively thinks that he can approach this cup in the same way he approached his own personal one. I don't need to fill it up much. I know my relationship with myself, the container, the structure. I don't need to fill it up with more than what I need. I don't burn myself out, and I'm comfortable with what I have. And on the good days when I'm feeling really good and I'm overflowing, I'm happy to share it with other people. Not so with the female cup that she calls a joint relationship cup. Not so with hers. Because her own personal cup, when you look at it, she doesn't fill it up with much of anything at all. She's always asking for the world to fill it up through shopping, entertainment, or what have you, transient sort of whatever. In a joint cup, you are quite actionably filling this cup up with things that gives us security and material goods and provision and protection and kids and maintaining everything. You are constantly filling up this relationship cup, the joint one, with everything she wants. There's very little in it for you. So the only thing you could do in a joint relationship cup, from what I see, the average imbalanced romantic relationship, is be happy with a few drops in this cup for you, and the rest of the liquid that's pouring in here like a waterfall, month after month, year after year, the pink liquid that resembles everything in this cup, unless you make the cup bigger over time and it reaches the point of flowing over, that is when she leaves. You do not get any excess from this cup. You put in a few drops for you, you pour everything else in here for her. And when a man rationally kind of slows down and says, you know what, enough of excess, enough of running, can we just relax? That's when you might start saying, no, I'm not building this cup any bigger. The point is, the water is filling up all the time in terms of what she wants. Don't lose sight of your own cup, gentlemen. I think it's a really simple metaphor to keep your eye on the ball. Make sure you're okay. Make sure you're putting everything in that keeps you fulfilled, and not to hollow yourself out and just be a person that shovels everything into someone else's cup that ultimately will end, and it'll be just sunk costs because you'll just be tired and very soon see that you're not getting anything out of putting all the work into this, out of saying yes all the time and adjusting your life, your relationship to just accommodate her. Focus on your own cup, gentlemen. Filter your life through your own cup, first and foremost, and then give to the joint cup as a secondary measure, but never lose sight of your own. I hope that was something to chew on. I'll talk to you later. Feel free to like, subscribe, and share my work on social media, comment under this content, or join the conversation on Discord. If you'd like to support me directly, there are donation options below. I appreciate all of you who have and continue to. It's people like you that make all the difference. Thanks.